when I talk to businesses around the country, particularly in Quebec, but elsewhere across the country, their number one issue is tariffs, and their number two issue is access to temporary foreign workers. C'est il faut garder ce programme, pas éliminer ce programme.
I have an explosive show for you today. Things are erupting in Canada. We have Pierre Poilievre that says he wants to completely eliminate the temporary foreign worker program immediately, like right now. Then we have Mark Carney that says that program's not going anywhere. The Liberals' plan is to go full steam ahead with the temporary foreign worker program. The contrast between the Conservatives and the Liberals is like night and day. One is net zero, zero prosperity, and a decline in Canada. And the other one is putting Canada first for a change and unleashing our natural resources to make Canada the fastest growing economy in the world. We got new economic data that was released today showing that Canada's economy is imploding right now. We have zero time to waste, and the Liberals are delaying everything. Our future is at stake. Let's get into this report. Things are out of control in Canada. When people get off the plane, at the baggage area, there's a sign. This is the sign. It says Migrant Worker Supported Program, Temporary Foreign Workers Orientation Service at Toronto Pearson Airport. What? So when you get off a plane and you're here to visit, they're like, we're going to hire you as a temporary foreign worker, government programs, local community services. And it says, get information on your legal right, emergency services, housing, application for your SIN number and chip, access to health care, education for children and adults, transportation system, employment services and workers' rights, domestic violence, LGBTQ plus community, youth services. This is in our airports, Canada. Wake up. Pierre Poilievre announced today that he wants to see a complete end to the temporary foreign worker program effective immediately.
And let's be honest, young people today form what I call generation screwed. Let's look at the situation for this generation. It is the first generation that cannot afford a home in Canadian history. And now, the double gut punch. They have the highest, or the worst employment numbers of any group of young people since the late 1990s. So you can't get a job, and even if you did have a job, you can never buy a home after 10 years of Liberal government. The Liberals doubled housing costs. They unleashed crime and chaos in our communities with their soft laws. They broke our immigration system by allowing too many, too fast, too easily to come into the country, and they have destroyed our economy by pushing investment out of our country. Now, Mark Carney promised that he would be different. He has been worse than Justin Trudeau in almost every objective measurement. Let's go through the promises. He promised to build, baby, build. Well, far from doubling home building as he promised, home building is expected to drop by 13%, according to his own housing agency. As for major national projects, 5 months in, and there's not a single national project that Mr. Carney has even identified, much less permitted, much less having shovels in the ground. Not one pipeline, not one mine, not one major expansion of a port. All we have is meetings, offices, new bureaucracies, new high-paid big shots with big salaries who have thus far achieved absolutely nothing. The time has come for decisive action to stop the Liberals from using our immigration system to pad the pockets of corporate elites and other insiders at the expense of Canadian jobs. Again, the principle is very simple. The principle is very simple. Canadian jobs for Canadian workers. Canada first, Canada always. That's why Conservatives are calling on the Carney government to permanently scrap the temporary foreign worker program and to stop issuing visas for any new temporary foreign workers coming into the country. Under this proposal, existing permits would be wound down until the program is entirely eliminated. Canadian jobs will go to Canadian workers first. It's time that Mr. Carney took the job seriously of repairing the damage that his party.
Let's see how the temporary foreign worker program has exploded across Canada right now. This is not in the past. They haven't slowed anything down. I got a heat map to show you. Here's a heat map that Lima has created. The Labor Market Impact Assessment is a document granted by the government to allow businesses to hire temporary foreign workers. Temporary foreign workers are intended to temporarily fill specific jobs for which qualified Canadians supposedly are not available, with people not covered under the existing work mobility agreement. Lima is a permission from the government to hire foreign instead of Canadian. Look at how many there are across Canada. We currently have unemployment rate near 15% for our Canadian youth between the age of 18 and 24, and our unemployment rate for the entire country is near 7%. So you're telling me that, and there's 1.6 million people that are unemployed right now in Canada, and that number is increasing. Are you telling me that 1.6 million people that are unemployed currently can't find a job, can't fill one of these positions? I don't believe it. Now let's hear from Mark Carney, which basically says that the Liberal government is going full steam ahead with the temporary foreign labor program. Why? Why would he even say this? He says it's because businesses in Canada are asking for it.
Mr. Poilievre called this morning on the government to scrap the temporary foreign worker program. Is it time to shut the program down?
Well, I would say the following, which is that that program has a role. It has to be focused in terms of its role. And it's part of what we're reviewing. It's part of what we will be discussing, how well the temporary foreign worker program is working and how our overall immigration system is working. We've been absolutely clear as a government that we want, and we're putting in place policies so that the overall level of immigration as a proportion of the population will decline from around 7% today to around 5% several years from now.
That's not enough, by the way. We need to drastically reduce the numbers.
Now, the biggest contributor to immigration is not temporary foreign workers. It's a variety of other factors. And I will say, et je vais répéter en français parce que c'est...
Oh, by the way, when he goes to French, it's because he doesn't want you to know what he's saying. Good thing I'm bilingual.
When I talk to businesses around the country, particularly in Quebec, but elsewhere across the country, their number one issue is tariffs, and their number two issue is access to temporary foreign workers. Okay? Et pour le moment, c'est une des grandes demandes du gouvernement du Québec, et c'est une des grandes demandes des entreprises québécoises. Il faut garder ce programme.
He just said we need to keep the program.
Pas éliminer ce programme.
Not eliminate the program.
Alors, mais on peut, ce qui est clair, on peut améliorer le programme en total, ensemble de l'immigration. As a whole, it's clear that we can improve our overall immigration policies. We're working on that.
Isn't it interesting? He did not say that in English, only in French, because he doesn't want you to know that he's going to go full steam ahead with this program.
And we're setting clear goals to adjust.
And by the way, the reason that the business community want to go full steam ahead with this program is because the government is subsidizing the wages, as well as they're undercutting the wages of Canadian citizens. So the corporations are making billions of dollars on the backs of you and I. Yeah, it's a massive problem in Canada, and the Liberals, they're just going to continue to exploit it. Back to Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre wants Doge in Canada. We need to start actually cutting the size of government to bring down inflation in this country, because Mark Carney, he's not planning on cutting anything. If he does cut something, he's just going to convert it into investment category. It's one of those accounting tricks Overall, we're going to continue to spend at record pace in Canada.
So far, Mark Carney has not found a single penny in new savings. While he promised to spend less, in the 5 months he's been Prime Minister, he's increased the cost of the government by 8%. 33% more federal public servants are earning over $100,000 under Mark Carney. He's increased the cost of consultants by 37%. And if you believe economists, they calculate Mark Carney's deficit could be twice as big as Justin Trudeau's, which is unimaginable. No one thought it was possible to have a worse deficit than Trudeau, but Mark Carney appears to have accomplished it. What I would say to everyone is, ignore Mark Carney's speeches, the letters he writes his ministers, which then get conveniently leaked to the media. It doesn't matter what he says. It matters what he does. And the numbers are very stubborn things. They show that Mark Carney is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau, that the deficit is getting bigger, and that will mean more inflation and more economic ruin for our country. Mark Carney is not a change, he is worse. We need to cut consultants, bureaucracy, corporate welfare, foreign aid, handouts to fraudulent refugees, and other wasted money. We need to bring down the cost of government to bring down the cost of living with lower taxes, inflation, and debt.
We need to do it now, not tomorrow. We don't even have any time to waste. We need to start slashing this foreign aid. We need to start slashing departments. We need to get rid of all the costs that are causing inflation to skyrocket in this country. If you go and try to buy a piece of steak, it is so expensive in this country. It's going to be, if it's not already, a luxury item. And coffee drinkers, we are seeing almost a 50% increase in the cost of coffee this year alone. We're going back to Pierre Poilievre. You know, one thing that I really like about Pierre Poilievre right now is that he's actually allowing alternative media to ask questions. This is Ezra Levant with Rebel News asking a very solid question. We just heard from Mark Carney saying he's going full steam ahead with the temporary foreign worker program. And he asked this question before we found out that Mark Carney is going to be doing that. He says, Mark Carney and the Liberals are not going to take your advice. So what can Canadians do about it? Listen up closely.
Hi, Ezra Levant from Rebel News. I thought it was very interesting about booster juice paying $36 an hour to a foreign worker. And I think a lot of Canadians don't know how pervasive this is, and that's an outrageous anecdote. I don't think the Liberals are going to accept your advice here, so I think your reforms wouldn't be able to bite until you become Prime Minister if that happens. But I think there is something you could do in the meantime. And let me ask you if you would consider this. I'm actually just doing some brainstorming here. Would you consider shining a spotlight using your bully pulpit on the worst offenders? For example, maybe a company that really wraps itself in the Canadian flag, like Tim Hortons. Would you consider having an event outside of Tim Hortons? Would you consider writing to the board of directors of RBI and the Brazilian hedge fund? And I guess what I'm saying is, there's no downside to these companies hiring foreign workers. But if there was a PR downside, if patriotic Canadians said, this is enough. I notice in the UK there's a lot of people waving British and English flags. It's their response to immigration crises. Would you consider naming and shaming in the public domain abusers of the TFW program?
Yes. And thank you for the question. Michelle Rempel has already begun the process. She's been publishing the most egregious cases of corporate elites profiting by shutting Canadians out of jobs in favor of low-wage temporary foreign workers. And Michelle, do you want to add anything to that? Sure. Come on over.
No, thanks for the question, Ezra. It's absolutely egregious that these companies expect that they can just maximize corporate profits on the backs of and at the expense of Canadian youth. It's a practice that has to end. We've been naming and shaming them all week. I want to thank my team for finding those examples, but I encourage Canadians to go and look for themselves. There's been websites that have been set up so that people can see what these companies are doing. But the more important thing is, Ezra, that the Liberals are letting them do this. The Liberals are totally letting them do this. You know, Lena Diab, where was she this summer, the immigration minister? Did she name and shame any of these people? No, she didn't. And that's why we're here today. We're standing up for the people that are behind us. Enough is enough. Canadian jobs have to go to Canadians.
Good job. You know what? I like this strategy because we, the Canadian people, together are more powerful than a few people in Ottawa. If we come out and say we have had enough with this temporary foreign labor worker program and we boycott all the companies that are hiring and exploiting this program and pushing our youth into unemployment, that is enough for change to happen in this country. Together, we are strong. It's time we exploit these companies. Now, this is going to be fun. I have the Lima heat map, and oh boy, I'm going to leave this map for all of you in the comment section so you could go around and play with it. We're going to work together here and find all of the companies that are abusing this system. The first thing I've done here is I've clicked on the top right here, 2025 Q1. You could go all the way back, but we're just interested in the current applications. This map is incredible. Where would you like to go first? I'd like to go to the Lower Mainland. Now, this is going to blow your mind. Just in this area here, Surrey, 13,180 applications for this program currently. Let's double click. Now it gets into more specific for region. Let's look at this big circle right here. You could keep clicking, but when you go into a specific area, let's say right here, there's an actual list of who is applying for these jobs. Check it out. It's in good detail. We could actually see the company that's applied, what's it for, the location of business, low wage, low wage. This map is incredible, guys. Let's look at some other areas. For example, Simon Fraser University. We'll double click. Early childcare, food services, cook. Are you telling me a Canadian citizen can't go into early childcare and education? Or what about food services? Specifically, the students of Simon Fraser. Why can't they get a cook job so they could pay for their university? Cook, food services, university professor and lecturers. This is just blows my mind. I'm seeing this live with all of you. They're looking for university professors and lecturers in the Lima program. And it's not just one university professor, it's multiple. Where else should we go on this map? Let's look at some small towns to see what they're looking for. Let's go down to the city of Merritt. 58 in a small town. What are they? And that's 176. So it's way more. These are hundreds of applications. Let's see this. Low wage. Of course it's low wage. A pizza shop. Not sure what these things is. It looks like food services, retail, light duty cleaners, cooks, a bartender. So you're telling me you're going to get a temporary foreign worker for a bartender position? I've never heard of this in my lifetime. Man, we're having so much fun with this Lima map. Let's look at some other areas. How about the city of Calgary? Wow, look at, oh my goodness, 5,400. That's just in one little circle here, 2,700. There are thousands. Let's go see what people are looking for. What's in this section here? High wage. Holy crap, we found a high wage. You're going to find a temporary foreign worker for a high wage janitor, caretaker, and heavy duty cleaner. High wage for construction trades and helper. You're telling me that you can't find a Canadian citizen for a construction helper and laborer for a high wage. Construction, a bartender again, painters and decorators, food services. These are low wage. I want to look at these high wages. Contractor, supervisor, and carpenter trades. Transport truck drivers, great. They're going to be hiring transport truck drivers that are not local. I'm sure there's local people that could do that with 1.6 million people looking for work right now. I want to look at the high wage. Administrative assistant, more truck driver. This is actually incredible. I want to look at a couple more. Let's look at a different city. We'll pick something back east. What's happening in Quebec City? Let's see what's happening in Quebec. Holy moly. Look at all these circles. I want to know what's happening up here. You can't see this, but I'm going to move. It says approved right here, positions, 141 approved positions. And this is in harvesting laborers. Everything in this one location is for farmers. I get it. You know, in farmers, it's a tough job. We probably need some temporary foreign laborers for the tough jobs, but the high paying jobs, they could go to Canadian citizens for sure. This is a pretty cool map. I'd like everybody out there, check it out. Take a look at your neighborhood. Take a look at all of Canada. Let's all outline the companies that are exploiting this program, and let's just start boycotting them. Let me be clear. We're not boycotting legitimate claims in this program. Don't boycott those companies. But there are some companies like Tim Hortons and other companies that are for sure exploiting this program, and we need to find out who they are and start boycotting those companies, because our federal government, the Liberals, are all about making the corporations rich on your expense, and they're not going to stop. So what do we have to do? We have to take it in our own hands and do something about it. We're going back to Pierre Poilievre. If you think that this is not a problem, Pierre Poilievre's got the facts and the numbers for all of you.
Now, the Liberals promised they would cap the temporary foreign worker program at 82,000, but in the first 6 months, they've already handed out 105,000 permits. To put this into perspective, if they do the same number of permits for temporary foreign workers in the next 6 months that they did in the last, they will break the record again with over 200,000 temporary foreign workers coming in to take jobs when our own young people are facing record unemployment. The Liberals have to answer. Why is it that they're shutting our own youth out of jobs and replacing them with low-wage temporary foreign workers from poor countries who are ultimately being exploited?
It's unacceptable what the Liberals are doing. Now we're going back to Mark Carney. He is admitting that the former Liberal government, which I believe is the same Liberal government today, absolutely destroyed our government's finances by growing the size of government by 7% every single year. He actually admits this. He was also the economic advisor for this government for the last 5 years. He didn't talk about that one. He's saying that we need to address this. It's not sustainable. Well, duh.
Has been growing spending as a whole at over 7% a year on average for over a decade. That's twice the rate of growth of the economy on average. It's not a sustainable situation. So we need to rein in spending. We need to find efficiencies. We're in the process of finding efficiencies. One of the big elements of the discussions over the next 2 days will be about those efficiencies. It won't be the final discussion of that. We'll continue to work on this right up to the budget. So we.
What? We're going to be working on finding government efficiencies all the way up to a budget that is non-existent. They're going to table a budget potentially in the late fall. That means there will be zero cuts to the government until they table a budget, which will have a future plan to make cuts. Are we understanding this, Canada? This government has a never plan. We're in the biggest crisis since World War II. Not my words, Mark Carney's words. And they're moving at a snail's pace as if there's zero crisis whatsoever.
We need to do that, but at the same time, we need to invest as a country. And it's finding those efficiencies. It's the responsible thing to do with Canadians' money. This is Canadians' money. It's not the government's money. It's a responsible thing to do with that. But in finding those efficiencies, we create the room for these big investments.
Create the room? What room? We're running $100 billion deficit this year alone. What room is he talking about? We need to cut the government spending and not just transfer it into another department or investments, because their investments, the Liberal investments, all implode. And I'm going to show you before the end of this video a Liberal investment that has straight up imploded.
And the key to our strategy for investing, whether it's Build Canada Homes or these major projects, I can give you other examples, but look at those two, because you'll be hearing more about both of those in the coming weeks, is that the federal government, sometimes working with the provinces, but government, there's a bit of measures to catalyze investment, to catalyze enormous private investment. And that's how we get the big multipliers, and that's how we're going to give ourselves more than anyone else can take away.
$64 billion has flooded out of Canada into the United States because our country is in straight up decline. Businesses are not investing in this country. First, I'm going to show you some data sets, which is catastrophic in the Canadian economy right now. Then we're going to take a look at a Liberal investment that has imploded. Statistics Canada just came out with a productivity crash report that just came out today. Stats Can's labor productivity is down 1% in Q2, worst drop since 2022. Business GDP is down 0.7, first contraction since 2023. Work hours are up, output is down. Translation, Canadians are working harder and producing less. We're already in a productivity crisis, so this is very troubling. And check out this chart. The dark blue is gross domestic product. We're officially negative. We're in a recession. This thing's not rebounding. And now labor productivity is in straight up decline. Hours worked, you're working harder and getting paid less. This is catastrophic, Canada. Also in this report, in the Q2, manufacturing's down 2.1%, wholesale trade is down 2.6%, utilities down 4%, 9 out of 16 sectors are down. This picture are the two individuals smiling their faces off when they announced a $1.6 billion subsidies to an EV battery company, and Quebec also matched that investment. Today, we got a brand new report.
The Quebec government is now pulling the plug on a $7 billion electric vehicle battery plant near Montreal. This was a project that was launched in 2023. It was considered the largest private investment in the history of Quebec. Northvolt pledged to produce enough batteries to power 1 million electric vehicles a year. The Quebec government had promised up to $2.9 billion in financing for the project. Ottawa had committed up to $4.4 billion for the project. $500 million of that already gone, already spent. Plans for the battery plant have been up in the air since Northvolt's Swedish parent company filed for bankruptcy. That was back in March. American battery startup Lytton has announced it is acquiring Northvolt's assets. They had hoped to buy the Northvolt project.
It's all going into this incinerator, Canada. $500 million. Squeaky and Justin Trudeau, with those big smiles on their faces, has all ended up in the incinerator. Every time the government tries to make these massive announcements, I shake my head. When they go full tilt on this EV and net zero, all of that money is going to get burned. There's nothing good that's going to come from these investments. This is a prime example. Here's the real question. The Liberal government are still moving forwards with their EV mandate, requiring that starting next year, which is under 6 months away, that 20% of all vehicles in Canada be electric. And we just found out that the biggest battery factory scheduled to create 1 million vehicle batteries per year has now gone bankrupt, and the $500 million investment already invested is gone in the incinerator. Is this the end of the EV fantasy in Canada? We're gonna find out. That's it for today's report. In summary, the difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives, they're completely opposite. The Liberals want to control every single aspect of the economy. They want to control your life. They think they know better than you. And they want to make you more dependent on them, like you need them. They're entering the housing business. They're entering the energy business. They're involved in the temporary foreign worker business. You name it, they are involved because liberals believe they know best. But here's the thing, if they had a great track record, I'd understand why some people would be supportive of them. But their track record over the last decade has resulted in the worst economic decline in Canadian history, with our standard of living just falling straight off of a cliff. We are in an affordability crisis. 50+% of Canadians are living $200 away from insolvency, being completely finished and wiped out. We need change in this country, and we need it now. We can't even wait till next year. They're going to provide us a budget in the fall and not going to do any cuts whatsoever within the government. The way that we have zero projects in national interest, they just opened one single office. The pace that they are moving is not the pace we require during a crisis. If we don't have change, and we don't have change quickly in this country, well, it's all downhill from here. I look forward to providing everybody these reports. I know that they are so serious, but we need to share the information to everybody in this country so that we could wake up and demand change, because we can make a difference. Us people collectively together can rise up and actually make a difference. I'll see you on the next report.